Hi, this is Tyson with JavaScript Vignettes, and today we're going to be looking at how we can finish building out our React Native app that we've been building. Right now we have this basic listing view, but we're going to expand this to something where you can actually tap on individual list items in the list, and it'll go to their little details page. So first things first, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to change our app from something that has no state. It's a stateless presentational component. And we're going to want to change that into something that does have state because we're going to need to keep the state of our navigation. And I should say right now there are lots of great navigation components out there, but we're showing building your own navigation just so that you can get kind of a feel for how state management can work in a React Native app. So we're gonna say class app extends React dot component, and then it's going to take a render, which will return what we already were returning. All right. So nothing should change at that point, but something will change here in a second. So we're going to add a constructor here, which takes the props that are passed in, and you call super passing in props to that. And then we're going to add a state. We're going to say person ID, which will start out equaling null. So anytime the person ID is null, we're going to want to show our listing view, and if the person ID is not null, then we're going to want to show our details view that we're going to build here in a second. So what we can do here is we can say this dot state dot person ID, put an exclamation point in front of it. So if there's not that, actually even better, we're going to say if there is that, then we're going to render our details, and if there's not, then we're going to render our listing. So details doesn't exist yet, so we're going to need to actually make that. So we're going to import that from screens/details. And it's going to throw an error because it doesn't exist yet, so we're going to have to go in and create it. I'm going to say import React from React. It's just the basic building blocks of a React component, so you know the drill at this point. We're going to get view text and style sheet from React Native. I'm going to make a component called details. It's going to take props, and it's going to actually, even better, we could go into our listing view and take all of this that already exists and just throw it on here. So we're expecting a person to exist, so we'll just get that out of props. So we'll just get our person from our props, and then we just need to get our styles. So we already have some styles here for all this stuff that exists already. We don't need a listing, or yeah, we do need a listing item. We need the profile image, we need the name, we need the bio. So yes, we need all this stuff. Okay, then we're going to export our details. And so nothing should change at this point because there's never going to be a person ID. But that's all about to change. So we're going to go back to our listing page. Let's remove the bio because we don't want to see that right away. So now it's going to look kind of wonky because the image is not lined up right. We'll go back to aligning the item center. So that way the people's names are lined up with their image. And now we want to wrap each of the people with a touchable. So we're going to import touchable opacity from React Native. And this is just basically an element that you can interact with and touch in some way. And we're going to wrap the whole thing with it. So we actually need to bring our key up from the view into the touchable opacity because it's because this is the thing that we're mapping over now instead of the view. So now what we want to do is we want to add an onPress event, and we'll say whenever there's a press, we're going to call props dot set person. We'll pass in the person ID. It's going to throw an error right now because set person doesn't exist. So what we want to do now is we want to go back into our app, and we're going to make a method called set person, which is going to take the person ID. It's going to say this.setState, so it's going to set the state based on the person ID that we get. So we're going to take the person ID and set it on the state, so the person ID will change from null to whatever is passed into it. We also need to take that and we need to bind it to the correct context. So we'll say this.setPerson equals this.setPerson.bind this right here, and then on our listing view we'll say setPerson equals this.setPerson. So now when we click on Luke Skywalker, it says ID is not defined. That's in the details view. So let's go back over here and see what's going on. It says, because there's no person yet. So what we want to do, we'll take with people, wrap that around details, and we'll return the view. And so we'll go back to saying props here, and so we'll say the person is whoever is equal to props.people.find and we're passing in our person ID. Okay, with people is not defined, so we need to import that. Okay, so now it says the ID is not defined, so person still doesn't exist. So the next thing we want to do is make sure that we're actually passing in the person ID, which we're not. So we'll just spread the state over here. Alright, so now we're still getting an error. So what we can do is we can, let's look at what our props actually are. So we have a person ID and we have people. So we'll look below here. See, we have a person. and person is undefined. So that is because we're looking at the index of the person ID, which this is actually a deeply nested thing. The ID is on the ID is not the key. It's actually what's underneath it. So what we actually want to do, let's filter. We'll say filter get a person from each one, and we'll return if the person .id compares to props.person ID. Getting closer. Image isn't defined, so we'll need to import image from React Native. Alright, now person is an array, so we actually need to get the first item off of that array. So we'll just get the first one like that. Stop logging. There we go. So now we actually can go to the person, but you might notice we can't go back. So we need to make our header allow us to go back. So we'll say if there's a person ID, we'll do something differently than if there's not one. So if there is a person ID, let's make let's say back. Actually need to use props, so we'll take that as an argument. And then also we need to go to our app and make sure that we're passing in the state from the app. So we'll spread this state over it, and we'll also want to be able to set the person from inside the header, so we'll pass that in too. So go back to our details view, and let's import another touchable opacity. Actually, we wanted to be in our header view, sorry. So we'll go to our header view, import touchable opacity, and then we'll want to wrap this with touchable opacity, and we'll say on press props.set person, and we'll set that to null. So that will reset the person and hopefully send us back to the listing page. So there you have it. We go to the details, we click back, and it goes back to the listing page. And that's basic homespun routing using React Native. Obviously, it's not nearly as advanced as a lot of cases that you would actually need a real router, but this is kind of just showing you how you can use state in a top-level component and control things on a lower level.